I'm Kate Ward, and this is your Dickman Farm Smart Gardening Tip. And this is the next in a series of Mythbusters that we're talking about things, especially with houseplants, that you hear out there, that you see out there, and this one relates to watering. So fun, I actually have found so many that I wrote them down, and let's go through a few so we can tell you whether it's true, false, or the truth behind them. So, number one here, if it's wilting, it needs to be watered. Well, that's not always the case, and we're starting out with a hard hitter. Or if it has yellow leaves, it needs to be watered, or it's overwatered, or it's underwatered, or brown tips, it's overwatered, it's underwatered. Well, what does it really mean? Nothing. You don't know. But these are signs on these. They're all signs that something's not right with the water uptake of the plant. So in this case, oh no, that's really wilting. Well, as it turns out, probably what happened to this particular plant, it's really wilting. These should be up here looking good. They're not. But as it turns out, with a little light tug here and there, this had root rot. So likely the top of this didn't dry out. It stayed particularly wet. And as you can see, it literally rotted. So more water in this case would not have helped this plant. And that's right, we're not afraid to say that occasionally we don't do plants great either, but we try really hard and we are so successful 99% of the time. But here's an example of what happens when something stays a little too wet, a little too long. So don't just blindly water. The same thing, these yellow leaves are a good indicator that something's going on. And sometimes it's just the plant is getting a little bit bigger and a little bit older and it no longer needs those leaves. So make sure you check to see, you can do this, the old finger check. Does that soil feel cool? Cool soil, if you can't quite tell damp, tends to be moist. Warm tends to be dry. Well, a little bit dry and I need to give it a drink. Well, should be the top inch or so, or maybe more, that's dry before it gets a drink. So know that. Don't just automatically go with, hey, yellow leaf, it's in trouble. No, they can come out and maybe it was just done with those leaves, which is the case here. And on the opposite, brown leaves, something else, it got too dry. Well, not necessarily. Again, in this case, they're older leaves. The plant doesn't need them down here, so it's just a matter of cleanup. So check before you assume. What else did I find out there? Oh, water every week. Now this is a good one for an indicator if you're just getting into plants to pay attention. That's good. But again, if you just go in and haphazardly water, you're going to end up maybe overwatering or conversely underwatering something that needs a little bit more. Maybe it's not going to make it to the next 7-day time when it needed a drink. So it's a good way to get started, but just like when you need something to eat, maybe you need something to eat and it's not lunchtime at noon every day. Maybe sometimes you're hungry at 1 and that's when you need to eat. Well, same thing. When do they need a drink? They need a drink when they need a drink. So make sure you check. What else did I find? Oh, misting your plants daily. Well, some plants really like the higher humidity. Take things like these Phalaenopsis orchids. They don't mind the higher misting on their root systems, but if we were to just mist daily our plants, they don't all appreciate it. So if I were to mist this African violet, or perhaps this Charita daily, it's gonna get stuck on these little leaves. It's not gonna dry out well. They have little fuzzy hairs. The water sticks there and often causes rots and diseases on the leaves. So make sure you take with a grain of salt what you hear out there or see out there if you're doing your adventuring online. Next, use distilled water. Well, the thing about distilled water, that's exciting. I guess it's interesting. It has its uses, but not really with plants. Just like the idea of tap water is no good. So for the most part, distilled water has all the minerals taken out of it. Well, the plants use the minerals just like your body does. So it's actually good for you to drink, the water from, well, not you, them, the water that comes out of the hose or that comes out, that falls from the sky. But distilled water has had taken all of the minerals and things that the plants need out of it. And conversely, if you're looking at the chlorine in your water and you're worried about that, well, think about it, you drink it. So I'm pretty sure it's gonna be safe for your plants if it's safe for you to drink. Those high chlorine levels that you're worried about building up in your plants if you're watering them, most likely is not gonna be a problem. Because if it was, you wouldn't be around to water them anyway, so All right, ice cubes. Oh, ice cubes. Just put it this way. When is the last time you saw an ice cube in a tropical rainforest? And if that doesn't answer the question on how I feel about ice cubes, then maybe just think about this. Go outside and find an icicle in the winter and just hold on to it and see what happens. Because the same thing that's happening to your hand where it starts to burn and freeze and eventually do damage, please don't hold on to the icicle that long, it's gonna happen to the roots that you're putting it on. People really like the idea of using ice cubes on things like these Phalaenopsis orchids again. They just put them in there, they put a couple in there, boop, boop, and let them sit. Well, if it's sitting on a root like it would be here of these guys, then you have that cold, freezing substance sitting on a tropical plant, or even if it's sitting in your hand, it burns, it's cold, it does damage. Also though, if it melts, I get the substance, the substrate here wet, but I don't really get all these aerial roots wet, as opposed to taking it to the sink and giving it a good hose down. So think about that. Again, I'd say that's not the greatest way to be watering some of your plants. And the only other thing I'll talk about in general is watering as an overall. Back to that once a week theory, your plants are all individuals, just like you are. I might need to drink this much water. You might need to drink that much water. So these plants, different leaves, sizes, different leaf textures, different leaf strategies. This one holds water. So they're all gonna be a little bit different. They all need a good drink when they need a drink. So a cactus may not need a drink for a month, but when it does, don't just give it a little tiny. It's like, again, if you get thirsty, you don't take a sip of water, you take a drink of water. So give it a drink and then let it stretch out till when it needs another one. Texture, size, pot size, where you have it in the house, they all make a difference. So those have been some myth busters that we are educating you on so you know how better to take care of your plants. And as always, if you have questions, come on in and see us. We'll see you soon.